Okay, so we are going to talk about linear equations and graphing them. If you have not figured this out yet, this is going to be breaking down slope-intercept form, standard form, and point-slope form. So in this case, we are given slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope. This is how you move. This is your rise and your run. The b is where you begin on the graph. That's the y-intercept. Okay, so starting with this equation, this is already in slope-intercept form, so it doesn't require any rearranging or anything. In this case, I should already have a graph here, but I don't, so I'm gonna make one really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then hopefully this will help you on your zombies activity. So in this case, I am beginning. The B stands for begin. That is where you are starting on your graph. This is called the y-intercept. So on the y-axis, I am starting at +5. So you're gonna put your start point where you're beginning at +5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then my m represents my slope. That's how much I'm rising and running. The m represents how I am moving. Now, notice my slope is negative. So if I have a slope of negative, I'll just write it over here, -2/3, it's saying that that whole fraction is negative. What we do in class is we just take that negative sign and put it in the numerator. So I'm gonna say I'm going down 2 and I'm going to the right 3. If you cannot go down 2, let's say I started at -5 instead and I can't go down 2 because my graph is not big enough, I would use the slope in the opposite direction. Instead of going down 2 and to the right 3, I would go up 2 and back 3. That would still produce a negative or a decaying line from left to right, just using the opposite direction. So I'm going down 2, 1, 2, and then to the right 3. 1, 2, 3, boom. There's my point. Once you have 2 points, technically 2 points make a line, so there is my linear function. For number 2, same thing, it's already given in slope-intercept form. I'm gonna start at -2 on my graph, so I'm gonna extend just a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm gonna start at -2 because that's where it tells me I'm beginning. This is the B, that's where I begin. Now I'm gonna use my slope to move. Now if my slope is +3, I have to make this into a fraction. To turn any number into a fraction, you put a denominator of 1. So my numerator is 3, my denominator is 1. So if my fraction is 3/1, that means it is positive. I am going up 3 and I am running to the right 1. So I'm from my starting point where I begin at -2, going up 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going over 1. Up 3, 1, 2, 3, to the right 1. The more points that you have for your graph, the more precise your line is going to be. Extend in both directions. We're not making line segments, we're making linear functions. So that is my next line. And I was a little off, but that's okay. Now what we're gonna talk about is standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. This is where x and y are together on one side of the equation, your equal sign, and then you have the constant in the back. So notice x and y are together on one side, 9 is in the back. What we're gonna do is we're basically changing it into slope-intercept form. We're isolating the y. To isolate the y, I need to get rid of 2 things, the 3 and the 5x. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to move the 5x. The 5x right now is positive, so I'm gonna minus 5x to both sides. So now I have 3y equals technically 9 minus 5x. I'm gonna use the commutative property to switch those 2 terms. So I have 3y equals -5x because the minus sign is with the 5, that means the 5 is negative. The 9 is positive, so I have +9 in the back. Now I need to isolate my y completely by dividing each term by this number. So +3. Y equals -5/3 x plus 3. That means if I were to graph this, I would start at +3 where I begin on my y-axis, and I would use my slope to rise and run to find another coordinate point that falls on this equation. So I'm gonna begin at 3 on the y-axis. That's a y-intercept. So 1, 2, 3, put a point. My slope is -5/3. If my slope is -5/3, that means I'm going down 5 to the right 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. So that other coordinate point is 3, -2. Number 4, same process. My x and y are together. I'm going to change this into slope-intercept form by isolating the y. I need to get rid of a -2, and I need to get rid of the x. I'm going to move the x first. The x is positive. I'm going to minus it. If the x started off negative, I would add x to both sides because you need opposite operations to cancel things out. Bring down -2y equals, I could write 8 minus x. I'm going to use that commutative property just to save myself a step. I'm going to put the -x first. 8 is positive. It's going to go in the back. Now I have to isolate my y completely. So I divide both or all terms. I shouldn't say both. Every single term is being divided by -2. It's a -2 because that minus sign represents the negative for the 2. So I have y equals 2 negatives will make a positive. The coefficient of x that's not written is 1. So this is actually 1 over 2x. 8 divided by -2 is -4, so -4. I can graph that if you would like me to. I guess I'll do it really quick. I begin at -4 on my graph, and then I'm going to use my slope to move across my paper. So I begin here at -4, 1, 2, 3, 4. My slope is positive. It should be increasing from left to right. So since my slope is 1/2, I'm going up 1 to the right 2. Up 1 to the right 2. Boop. There's my point. Increasing from left to right because my slope is positive. Moving on, point slope form is the last thing that we're going to talk about. I'm only going to do one question about this. Point slope form is y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. So for example number 5, I just came up with a random coordinate point. You're going to be given a point. You're going to be given the slope, point, slope form. It's not random. So this is going to be your x sub 1 and your y sub 1. The slope is always your m. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my formula, replace m, x sub 1, and y sub 1 in that equation. So I have y minus y sub 1. Y sub 1 in this case is positive 8. So I have y minus 8 equals m. M is 1/2. In parentheses, I have x minus x sub 1. Keep the first x. It does not have a sub number. Minus x sub 1. X sub 1 is -2. So I am minusing technically -2. If I'm minusing a -2, that becomes a positive because you're minusing a negative. When you're minusing a negative, they contradict each other. You have that negative, so it produces that plus sign. I'm going to distribute that 1/2 into the parentheses. 1/2 times x is 1/2 x. 1/2 times 2. Half of 2 is 1. Now I have to move and isolate. Well, I have to isolate the y, so I'm moving the 8. It says -8, so I add 8 to both sides. Y equals 1/2 x plus 9. Same thing, I'll graph this really quickly. This one's going to be a little bit harder because I have to start at 9, so I'm going to just draw like the first quadrant roughly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So my starting point is at 9, and I'm supposed to rise 1 and run 2. Rise 1, run 2, point. It should be increasing from left to right because the slope is 1/2. So it's going up 1 over 2. Hopefully this helps. If you have trouble with parallel and perpendicular lines, go back and watch my parallel and perpendicular lines video. Okay, bye.